Welcome to the Genesis of the Doctor podcast, where we're taking a journey to the time and space of the history of Doctor Who. I'm Tris,
And I'm Joy.
and for today's episodes, we're focusing on the 7th and 8th serials of Season 4, being the Macra Terror and the Faceless ones. So, there was actually a lot that happened during these two, and a lot of big points to mention, including the fact that at the end of the Faceless ones, we say goodbye to Ben and Polly. So this is quite a big one here. But let's start with the Macra Terror. I have more notes on that episode than I think I did for most of the other ones of this season, which is kind of weird in retrospect, and it had me thinking about it even more. And I think it's because there's just a lot that's happening that's keeping you thinking during this serial, and it's also like really uncomfortable through a lot of it. Like just everything happening, it's constantly uncomfortable and has you like really looking at everything about it.
Yeah, they go for a very 1984 feel to it.
Mm-hmm. And you see that immediately, and you're just like, "Oh, all right, yeah, I don't think I like that."
I was very surprised that this is what the story was with Macra, considering in Gridlock they're very different. Although I guess the Doctor
Yeah,
mentions that they de-evolved in that, so it kind of makes sense. But yeah, Gridlock definitely feels weird for the Macra, considering they're very different in this.
yeah. In Gridlock, they very much are just big crabs, which is really interesting because when you look at the premise behind Gridlock in Series 3 with Martha and the 10th Doctor, you very much could spin it into a plot, much like this one.
Yeah,
Like, you could have that the Macro have control over the city. You can have the fact that the motorway is purposefully the way it is to keep the Macra pleased, so to say, while the rest of the world was sick or something. And the fact that they didn't is interesting. So those of us being modern Who fans, all we really had to go off of is in the modern day, the Macra are just big crabs. That's it. So
yeah,
to see here that they were not just big crabs, but intelligent and kind of terrifying in what they were capable of is fascinating.
yeah. Apparently, for Gridlock, Russell D Davis was originally going to do like an octopus or something, and then he's like, "Oh wait, there was giant crabs before. We'll just use them." So that explains
All
like
right.
why they're not really the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, like the whole like propaganda side to it is definitely well done. I would say the
It
Macra don't
really
exist.
is. The Macra don't exist. The music of "We're all happy to work," the idea of like healing people and fixing them being just subjecting them to the hypnosis and the brainwashing. It's really uncomfortable, like all the
Yeah,
way through.
definitely is. And I will make a note for you that in the animation, they kind of cut out a part where they change clothes and Polly gets a haircut. So that's why Polly just has short hair. Is because
Yeah,
she's supposed to get a haircut, and then they cut that part out because I guess they didn't have the budget to have her start the episode with longer hair.
yeah. I was really confused by that. Like, literally, my first note here is, what is with Polly's hair here? Like, it's really short and it doesn't look right.
Yeah. There's like a whole sequence that they just had to remove, and a funny part that happens in that sequence is that like the Doctor goes into a machine that like cleans his clothes and stuff, and then he doesn't like it, so he goes into another machine to mess up his clothes.
You know, that actually explains a line that we have later on as well, where they're talking about everything that they could do in their colony, and they even mention like, "Oh, you especially, sir, like getting your clothes cleaned," and he just has the most shocked expression at here at being told that.
Yeah. And then they also slightly changed the ending because in the ending, to escape, they took a leaf out of Jamie's book, as they put it, and they danced their way out of the room. And they just
That's
removed that bit.
pretty funny. That's pretty funny. Also, shout out to the couple of times they say gay in this story,
Yep.
even though it's not meant in the modern sense. It's still very funny out of context. Like,
The Doctor says this is
like
gay
just
at the beginning. And
Yeah,
then
it's like, well, this is gay. I have noted, thank you, doctor, even though you don't mean it in that way whatsoever.
they ask Jamie for something gay and cheerful.
Yep, it's really funny, honestly.
Yeah.
um, but I really liked what they did in this episode with how each companion had like a whole different arc.
Yeah,
Um,
that was definitely well
I know
done.
we had been dealing with like splitting Ben and Jamie's role between both characters, but I like how here we had Ben fell to the control and was kind of more antagonistic and fighting that the whole time. It gave him something different to do from Polly and Jamie. Though I am a bit surprised it was only Ben. I thought it was the way they presented it. It seemed like it was only going to be Jamie who survived it and didn't fall victim to it. But
Yeah.
I guess the doctor got to Polly just in time.
In the original episode as well, Polly was in her own room, so it might have been that like it hadn't started in her room yet. So,
Oh, okay.
but yeah, in the animation, they're all just in the same room. So yeah,
Gotcha. Yeah, that makes more sense then.
yeah, I kind of like that Ben was the one that was brainwashed this time too, because we've already seen that with Polly, obviously.
Yep.
So
Yep.
now Ben had got his turn.
Yeah, it helped kind of even that up a little bit. I love how like Jamie was just constantly ready to fight him too. It was really funny
Yeah,
actually.
I did find it a bit funny though that the only people that call them the Macra are the brainwashed people. So like,
Yep.
if they never said the Macra don't exist, nobody would know what to call them.
Exactly. It's your telltale sign of being brainwashed, knowing the name of them.
Yeah. There was also I noted that in the prison where Medoc was captured, there was
Mm-hmm.
stuff scratched into the wall, and one of them was Medoc is right, which is a bit confusing because like he was just sent there right now, so I guess he
Yeah.
did it immediately. It also said Macra exists
Immediately
there
going
too.
for graffiti. Yeah. This is a little odd. I think my biggest problems with this episode are everything to do with the mines, though.
Yeah,
Just because I feel like they tried really hard to flesh it out, and then I felt they kind of fumbled in certain parts. There were certain elements of it that didn't add up the way they wanted it to. Like, oh, the gas mines, and they made a big deal about giving them masks. Okay. Oh, the masks that they're given are just for the eyes, even though it's gas? That's weird. Oh, no, we're gonna be right in front of a huge amount of gas. Okay, now put your face mask on. Wait,
yeah,
why weren't we wearing that as soon as they got in here? Like, that's pointless at that point.
yeah. That was all a bit weird. You think they'd just wear them, but no, they put them in their pockets to start with for some reason.
And then Polly being like, what do you mean you're going to look for more gas? Like, well, Polly, you're in the gas mines to work.
Yeah,
Of course you're going to be looking for more gas.
yeah,
Like it was a bit of a mess there where that part, like, they clearly had a lot thought out because they had everything set up for what the gas mines were and the huge role that they play, but then kind of fumbled putting the characters in there.
yeah. I guess none of the people here ever worked in none of the people that made it ever worked in like hard labor and stuff, so they don't know like the safety
Mm-hmm.
regulations.
I guess, and I guess that's just us from the future looking back at it this way, where these things feel obvious to us. But
Yeah, maybe.
I think my favorite part of this story, though, was the doctor figuring out the chemical composition for the gas and like doing the whole like mathematical formula for creating it, and the trade secret basically that only the higher ups knew with that formula. And upon being told that he got it perfectly right, changes his grading of himself to be an 11 out of 10.
Yeah,
That was pretty funny.
got to see his intelligence there for a bit.
Mm-hmm. He's really shining like as the Doctor. Like we're really seeing his personality come out and how different he is from the first Doctor, but how so much of what the Doctor's identity we know him to be nowadays really seems to come from the second Doctor, it actually feels like.
Yeah. I feel like basically immediately upon getting the second Doctor, he's just like a modern Who Doctor, basically.
Yep. Yep. It's kind of wild, actually.
Yeah. The first Doctor was more about the character arc of becoming a heroic person, and then the second Doctor just is that heroic person
Yep.
right away.
Yep. Yep. Though, despite being the heroic person, there wasn't really much of an opportunity for stopping the Macra that wasn't just destroying them,
Yeah.
unfortunately. Which, for this Doctor, for what he's done so far, did feel a little strange because it does. Thus far, he kind of has been giving the opportunities we know the Doctor to give, or trying to, and it didn't really feel like he did it for the Macra.
Yeah. I guess he didn't really have a chance to do it because they were going to kill him. And
Mm-hmm.
he doesn't want to die. Although I guess he wouldn't have actually
Mm-hmm.
died, but his friends would have.
Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, I think the Macra Tower was really interesting because I actually really loved the presentation throughout this whole story of how like on edge everything is and just how
Yeah.
like tense it is. Like it's constantly feeling like something's going to go wrong, and the whole conspiracy theory, while also like very 1984, like you mentioned, it works really well to put the Doctor in a situation like that.
Yeah. I definitely think the whole presentation there of the colony and everything is very, very good.
Mm-hmm.
I will also note this is the same writer as both the Savages and the War Machines. So
Interesting. Okay.
at least two very good episodes.
Yeah, that's true.
I did also like the line of the Doctor that bad laws are made to be broken. It's a good line.
Yeah, that was definitely a good line. I did also love how at the end the Doctor's like, "Oh no, I might want to stay a while." It's like, "Oh yeah, well they want to make you the next pilot." He's like, "All right, well we gotta leave. I gotta get out of here."
Yeah, it's very
He doesn't
good.
want to lead.
It's a recurring trait of his that he just immediately has to get out of there.
Mm-hmm. I did find it a little strange how at the end they're celebrating. Oh, the strangers saved the colony, so we're gonna hold contests annually to give the strangers trophy to honor the strangers. Like they have names. You
Yeah.
can't just make it in honor of the Doctor. It's just the strangers. So you emphasizing the fact that it's because they were strangers that this all worked out. I mean, I guess, but that's a bit vague. I feel like in one generation, that's gonna be the meaning to that's gonna be kind of lost.
Yeah, that was definitely a bit odd there.
I did also feel like there was an unresolved plot thread of I can't remember his name, but basically the captain of the guard, the police chief, who clearly wanted control for himself and was given it by the Macra at the very end,
Yeah.
and then it didn't go anywhere. Like he was given full power basically to stop the Doctor and the pilot, and then it's just, oh, the Macra are gone. Oh, everyone's happy. Never see that guy again. We never see what happened for the fact that he wanted control. He also didn't really seem hypnotized, to be honest. He seemed more like he was willingly working for them. Just his mannerisms and everything were just very, very different from everyone else.
Yeah. Yeah, that guy was definitely a bit odd. Like they just kind of forgot about him at the end. I guess they just
Yeah.
wanted to have a human villain for a bit. And yeah, he was just kind of not the most well written part of the story for sure.
Yeah, he really wasn't, unfortunately. And it kind of sucks because there could have been a cool idea with it, but it felt like he knew from the start and it didn't go anywhere. Like he clearly wanted power the whole time, and I don't know. It's just weird that they didn't do more with it.
Yeah, I feel like that they could probably do a good sequel to the Macra Terror where they have to deal with people like him still wanting it to be a more authoritarian place. But yeah,
Ooh,
I
that
guess
would
they
be
never did
really
that.
interesting. That would be really interesting if you revisited this colony only a few months after, and the Doctor has to clean it up again, and maybe there's still Macra on the planet elsewhere. All he did was stop the ones that were in the colony.
Yeah,
They could still be elsewhere. Although I do want to clarify, The gas was for the Macra, like they breathed that gas, right? It was to help them.
Yeah, that's basically it. They needed the poison gas to survive.
Yeah, they needed that to survive. Okay, yeah. I was like, I felt like I must have like missed like a small thing in there. Like I know like the gas was poisonous to people, and clearly the Macra needed it, but I couldn't remember or like notice if they had like if they specifically outlined why the Macra needed it or not.
Yeah, because
But I guess it's just they breathe it because we have that in Gridlock. They
yeah,
breathe that air.
because they mentioned it was like being pumped into their control room, and then
Right. Yeah.
when they went to confront Jamie in the mines, they had to get the gas pumped into that place as well, so they could survive.
But the gas doesn't go through the colony at night. That's why I wasn't sure if they needed to survive because they were roaming the colony at night
Yeah,
and that gas wasn't out there. So I thought it was like something that powered them or something that made them stronger or something. But
I guess they can hold their breath for a bit, basically.
hold their breath long enough to grab Polly.
Yeah, I will say that apparently the in the original story, like the prop that they used for it was not the greatest for sure. It was just like kind of
I
like
was
a
definitely
big
curious
clunky
about
prop
that.
of a crab. They also didn't have legs apparently because I guess it would have just been too difficult.
I guess that's fair. I try to make something look big enough.
Yeah,
I guess that's also why they kept describing it as like some sort of crab or insect or something because without the legs and I guess it's only meant to kind of vaguely look more like that as opposed to fully.
yeah. And it had to be like a really big prop, obviously, because it directly interacts with the people. So they couldn't do like a miniature thing.
That's true. That's true. I also want to ask, was this one of the more recent animations?
Yes, I believe it was.
Because the quality of this one was like really good.
I think both Macra and Faceless ones are pretty recent.
Yeah, like they were both pretty good, but there was something about Macra Terror that felt like compared to the other animations we had seen up to this point, it felt like the cleanest and the highest quality.
This one was
Not counting
2019
Toymaker.
was this one.
Okay. When was the Faceless ones, I guess, for comparison's sake?
Let me just check. That was 2020, so right after each other.
Oh, wow. Okay. That's interesting.
And this is
Yeah, I don't know because I was gonna say there's something about like the animation in Macro Tower I liked a little bit better than the Faceless ones. It was just something the Faceless ones that felt a little bit different. I guess in like the movement of the people, but I don't know. I would have assumed Macro Tower was like I don't know like several years apart from Faceless ones and more recent. But no, all right, that's fair.
yeah, and this is also the longest amount of time of animated episodes in a row. Is what we're in the middle of
Yeah,
right now because it's
yeah, I can believe it because a lot of these are lost.
because it's 17 episodes in a row of animations right now between these two stories and the next one.
Wow, that is a lot.
But I just have a note that the Macra have the fifth, I think, yeah, the fifth longest interval between TV appearances for any creature on Doctor Who. And it was the third until a year ago. Because
Yeah,
right now we have the Toymaker in first, and Sutek in second, and then the Great Intelligence in third, and the Alpha Centauri in fourth, and then Macra are fifth.
okay.
We, we haven't met
Interesting.
some of those yet.
I wonder what else. I wonder what else will get to the list.
Yeah. I mean, they should bring back, like, the censor rights. They would be fun.
That I really think they should bring back the Sensorites. Yeah, that would be great. But no, I want to see them bring back the Macra in a better way than they did in Gridlock because I think these were really interesting villains, and I don't want them to be like uh anthropomorphized at all. Like I want to see them still be like the big ass crabs
Yeah.
because I think there's just something really fun with that and threatening about that. Like they're giant crabs, or maybe even we'll see like there's some evolutionary thing to them that makes them more like some fusion of crabs and other insects. But I think especially now with where CGI is at with Doctor Who nowadays. I would love to see the Macra come back in some capacity where they're actually intelligent again and not like strictly primal, because this was really cool seeing them lead this colony. And if you started with like a similar premise, but the Doctor being like, no, I've done this before, I can't just free the colony from them because it didn't. If this is happening again here, clearly that's not enough. I gotta do something more.
Yeah. Definitely would be a very interesting story to bring back. And unfortunately, this type of thing is certainly still relevant to this day.
Yep.
Yeah, people like 1984, so you can just do another one of those. And talk about how easily they can fall back into just allowing it to happen again. Stuff like that.
It's true. Man, could you imagine if it was exactly the same thing, but it was the Macra on like modern Earth, and you have like Unit helping deal with it?
Yeah.
That'd be wild. I have one final note that I do want to bring up here. And early on in the story, people were like very casually just understanding and noting like, yeah, people may be killed for wandering around at night. And that's not suspicious to them? That's not weird? Like, even with the hypnosis and brainwashing, no one's thought to question that?
Yeah, I guess not.
Like, we're happy, we're safe, we want to work. So, why would you be killed for wandering around at night?
I mean, I guess they do kind of show with Ben that, like, they are very, very brainwashed. So it kind of makes sense that they don't really care. It's like every night they are further brainwashed, basically.
Yep. It's a lot. It's interesting, but
I did also like the bit where the Doctor gets very offended by the music and is like, "Oh, did you hear that rhyme? It was so terrible."
That was really funny. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a very good episode. I quite liked it.
It is. Yeah, it was a really good story. I actually really enjoyed it, and I was pretty invested all the way through.
I think the second Doctor has had mostly good stories so far.
Yeah, he has, and it's a good feeling, honestly, because I really enjoyed his performance in them as well.
Yeah, I'd say like the Underwater Menace is the worst one, but it's still just a fun story. Like,
yeah,
there's nothing bad
I
yet.
think I agree. It's been the lowest of these second Arthur stories so far, but it's not a bad story.
Yeah.
But I think that's it for the Macra Terror. So that brings us to the Faceless ones. So the Faceless ones was 6 parts, but paced fairly well, I think, actually. Like, I most times we look at episodes or serials, I should say, that are longer, and we kind of figure, yeah, okay, I could see where they can kind of trim this down a little bit. I didn't really see that here, because I thought overall it was paced fairly well, and I enjoyed the characters. I just wish Ben and Polly were more involved, or the actors for them, getting replaced, were more involved, because being their last story, I wish they had more involvement, or the actors had more involvement.
Yeah, it was definitely a bit odd that they just kind of disappeared after episode 2.
Yeah.
And then their little farewell at the end was recorded ahead of time because that was one of their location shooting days was when they did that.
Oh, I see. Okay.
So technically they
So it's like their contracts basically ended in the middle of the serial.
Well, they were originally going to stick around until I think 2 episodes into Evil of Daleks is when they were supposed to leave, and then I guess they just decided they didn't want them in Evil of Daleks, so they just pushed their farewell up a bit. Apparently they were still paid up until when they were supposed to leave, though. So
Okay, well, that's good at least.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, we'll get to the specifics behind Ben and Polly as we when we talk about the proper goodbyes to them. But I was surprised that they didn't have more involvement here. Like, everything going on, especially with Polly being one of the ones to get replaced, I thought for sure we were going to see basically, like, mind-controlled Polly yet again from War Machines. I thought we were going to see that persist throughout, but we really didn't.
Yeah, it was a bit weird. how quickly they just removed her. I guess
Mm-hmm.
she kind of became like she would have made it so the doctor could figure out something was going on a bit faster, I guess. So
Mm-hmm.
they had to get rid of her. But yeah, it was
Yeah.
weird for her to be replaced, and then it's only for one episode, and then she's gone.
Yep. And then seemingly Ben never even got replaced.
Yeah,
He just got incapacitated.
we do see a fake Jamie towards the end, who just
We
uses
do.
Fraser Hines' regular voice, and the doctor points out that it's weird.
Which is pretty funny. He's not putting on the accent the whole time. And the doctor even being like, oh, I don't like it.
Yep.
You've changed the best part of him. But there's a lot of like really interesting points in this story. And I love how the mystery of it all kind of unfolds. Like, I thought this was actually like a really fun serial. And taking place in an airport was really fascinating, actually. Like, I've never really thought of that. But it worked out really well, and it was a really entertaining story too. The design of these aliens specifically made me think of the monks from series 10 with 12 and Bill and Nardole,
Yeah. I,
which upon first seeing them I thought it was going to be related, but no.
yeah. I will say in the original version they were not good costumes. They
uh
yeah, it was just kind of like I don't know how to explain it, but it's just like it didn't really look that interesting. But then the animation made the designs a lot better.
mhm. Yeah, that's fair. The animation seemed to take a lot of creative liberties this time, maybe even more than past ones, because on top of changing the design of the aliens, it also had a lot of Easter eggs.
Yeah,
Like, I don't know if they've always had this many Easter eggs, but there was a lot here. Like, there was the wanted posters that you brought up before that we would see. The wanted posters for 2 different iterations of the Master in the airport police station.
yeah,
There was quite a few other references. Like, there was an ad for Magpie Electricals, which is a reference to Series 2. There was ads in the newspapers that, like, Jamie was holding. Like Marinus padlocks and
yeah,
old smuggler's whiskey. Like, it was actually really cool seeing how many there were.
yeah. And then on the eye test, I don't know if you noticed, but backwards it spelled Bad Wolf on one of the lines
I didn't even notice that.
because it's Flow Dab, and if you read it backwards, that's Bad Wolf.
Yeah, that's pretty funny.
And then they also had on the commandant's desk there was a newspaper that was saying the war machines were defeated, so you could figure out
I did.
when it was set earlier.
Yeah, I did see that. Like, and yeah, so you had the note about the war machines, and thankfully, oh boy, later on we learned that Ben and Polly are basically back exactly when they should be.
Yep, it's the exact day they left.
By chance.
But yeah, there are definitely a lot of Easter eggs that they added there, which is interesting. I know that they occasionally do Easter eggs here and there in all the animations, at least in the more recent ones.
But these were definitely the most obvious, I guess,
Yeah.
or at least the ones I noticed the most directly.
I liked the Marinus Padlocks ad, which is just kind of a funny little thing to have there.
Yeah, that one was my favorite of these references.
Yeah.
But I did like seeing Magpie Electricals, just the fact that it wasn't all classic references.
And then also, for where there were the wanted poster for the Master, we see that bulletin board again in like the last episode, I think, but this time
Yeah, right near the end.
one of them is replaced by the monk instead.
Yep, I did catch that. It was pretty funny to see.
They just have a history of running after Time Lords, I guess. It's always Time Lords.
It's always Time Lords. What are they doing in this airport?
Yep. And yeah,
So,
they did do
I have-
a lot of location shooting for this as well, like actually at the airport.
Nice. I'm sure that's frustrating to close down an airport for filming. I'm
Yeah.
sure that's really inconvenient.
Apparently, I think one of the gun props like broke, so while they were doing location shooting, so that wasn't very good for them because they had to like
Oh,
hastily
jeez.
fix it and stuff. they had a lot of
Wow.
issues with the props for this story, so they stopped working with Shawcroft models who have been there since the beginning because there's just
Mm.
a lot of issues they had with props here. So they just kind of decided
Yeah.
after this, the visual effects will just be in-house BBC stuff. Shawcroft models
Mm-hmm.
are no longer involved.
Yeah, I mean, when you had that many problems. I mean, obviously, we wouldn't have been able to tell that just from the animation, but it's interesting to hear.
Yeah, apparently also the satellite prop was terrible to work with, and like it fell, and then they had to hastily fix it and stuff.
Oh, man.
So yeah, they had a lot of issues there.
Well, I'm curious what the props will be like going forward and how those will be since they're changing that.
Yeah.
So, I have a big question for you, though. Before we get to the leaving of Ben and Polly, how did you feel about Samantha, I believe her name was the woman who was looking for her brother, who was basically a one-off companion for this full serial that became so involved. I was convinced she was actually going to stay as a companion.
They did actually want her to be a companion, but the actress turned down the offer. So
Ah,
yeah, they were definitely wanting her to be a companion, and I guess it would have been a bit interesting for like the dynamic with Jamie, considering they
yeah,
immediately like each other and they're
yeah.
kissing each
They
other
immediately
already.
clicked.
But yeah,
Well, he kissed her as a distraction, but
yeah, she was an interesting character. I guess she kind of just basically became like the replacement for Ben and Polly because they left at the same
yeah,
time.
yeah. Which is why I thought for sure she was gonna go off with them, even if not for long.
Yeah,
I was hoping though that at the end we would have seen her reunite with her brother. I was a little disappointed that we didn't see that
yeah.
get resolved.
It also is just a bit weird that like they were thinking of making her a companion, but like the whole reason why she's here is because she wants to find her brother. So if she was a
Yeah.
companion, it would have been like, "Oh, hi brother, bye. I'm leaving now.
Yeah.
Possibly never going to see
Yeah,
you again."
that's true.
That would have been funny. I did also just find it funny that their last name is Briggs, and obviously, we know somebody with the last name Briggs in Modern Who,
That's true. That's true.
and
Wonder if it all comes together in some way.
the actress that played Samantha Briggs, she also reappears in Modern Who. She plays Queen Victoria in Tooth and Claw, which is a werewolf episode.
Oh, really?
Yep, that's her.
Oh, wow. Never would have guessed
So much
that.
later, she reappears. She's the queen now.
What a glow up.
She's the one that made Torchwood into a thing.
Yeah, that's pretty big. But no, I thought she was a really interesting character. It was the moment when she, Jamie, and the Doctor were like frozen and dealing with the laser that I was like, wow, it really feels like they're trying to make her a companion.
Yeah,
That was the moment it hit me.
yeah. Apparently, they like basically were trying to beg the actress to do it, but she just didn't
Oh,
want a series regular role. So
mm-hmm.
we got a new companion next episode instead.
I wonder, looking back, if she feels differently about that as a, oh, I should have done it, or oh, I'm glad I didn't do it.
Yeah, yeah. I quite liked the aliens in this as well. They're
Mm-hmm.
basically Zygons before we had Zygons.
Yeah, especially with the fact that it's still very much an invasion of the body snatchers kind of story.
Yeah.
Well, Zygons aren't until the third Doctor, though, I think, right?
I'm not too sure. I think
Third or
might
fourth
be.
Doctor, if I remember correctly. But
Yeah. Like I think they might be third Doctor. I'm not too sure exactly when they show up.
mm-hmm.
I did find it a bit funny though that like they have the ability to just absorb the memories of people and everything, and yet sometimes they just don't replace the people that they take, which is a bit weird to me.
Mm-hmm.
Like, Samantha wouldn't have gotten curious about where her brother went if they just copied her brother and then her brother returned, you know, and Polly as well. She's not Polly, she's
Yeah,
somebody else.
it seems like their main goal was like to take all like the 50,000, which I don't know how they get all 50,000 back to Earth at the end. on one plane. But it seemed like their goal was to bring them to the main planet and or like to their home planet, and the only ones that went back to the airport were the ones they kind of needed for helping in the mission.
Yeah, I guess so.
And I think they only chose to do that with Polly to try to throw off the Doctor.
Yeah. It was also funny just how Polly was taken, though, where she's like 5 feet behind the Doctor and Jamie and they don't notice.
Yeah, I have that noted of you'd think with Polly having been chased by someone, they'd have kept a better eye on protecting her.
Yeah. They did at least notice she disappeared and went back to look for her.
Yeah, but even still, you'd think they would have had her like walking alongside them or in front of her just to, you know, make sure if the person showed up again, they could help.
Yeah.
But let's get into that a little bit. How are we feeling on Ben and Polly now that at the end of this they end up leaving? Because in general, I think I really liked Ben. I think Polly had a strong start and then really weakened as a character. But I really wish they had a stronger role to play in this story before leaving because it felt too obvious that they were trying to write them out, I guess.
Yeah. It feels like
And it was a disappointing end.
most of the companions we've had so far have not had good endings.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like really only Susan did to an extent because most of the other ones is just like they just leave at the end and like
I
nothing builds
thought
up to it.
I thought Ian and Barbara's was all right.
Yeah. I mean, even then though, that's like just at the end of the story. They're like, "Oh wait, we have a time machine. Can we go home?"
Yeah. Well, it's the fact that they were always trying to go back home, and then the opportunity was finally presented,
Yeah.
so they could. Like, I felt like theirs kind of made sense, and we even had like the really nice scene of like them back home.
Yeah.
Like they didn't like they had their goodbye, and then we saw like them get back. Whereas for every other companion, if they even got a goodbye, Dodo,
Yeah.
it's like a very quick, almost unceremonious thing, which is unfortunate.
Yeah. They don't really do a thing where like they write an episode that is supposed to be an exit for a companion. It just becomes one.
Yeah, yeah. I wonder when that starts. When like well written farewells kind of come into play.
Yeah.
I'm glad Ben and Polly got a farewell at least.
Yeah. They did get to say goodbye, which is better than what Dodo got.
Yes, they got to say goodbye, and their reason for leaving made sense. They finally landed by chance the same day they left.
Yeah.
So it and that worked out because they constantly were wanting to get back, just like Ian and Barbara.
Yeah. And at the beginning, Ben was
So in
like,
their case,
"I
they finally did it.
have to be back on my ship by tonight, so it needs to be the same day for him."
Yep.
Yeah,
And they did it.
I'm not the biggest fan of Ben and Polly. Like, I think Ben is fine. I think Polly can be fine, but can also be very grating of a person at times.
Yeah.
She was definitely better, like with the first Doctor, I think, and then I didn't really like her with the second very much.
I think Ben and Polly had really strong starts. I think with the first Doctor, yeah, like their characters when they didn't really know too much about who he was beyond he's the Doctor, and as they got involved in different situations, I thought they were really good characters, and I think it's because of how much heavy lifting they as actors had to do
Yeah,
with how the first Doctor was. But I think once they put the second Doctor in more the leading role and they gave the two of them more of a backseat to as companions instead of just the stars, they just weren't written as well. I think.
yeah,
I think Ben still had some great moments, but it wasn't long before he had to share that with Jamie, and Jamie was usually doing it better.
yeah,
And they just started really making Polly unlikable. She became the person that's there when you need a scream or a damsel, and she lost most of the intelligence that she had going into this. Like she was like she was like the assistant to a scientist, like the assistant to, or at least the secretary to science. Like she was not stupid.
Yeah. I think they were also definitely just struggling when they had three companions to try to find good roles for all three of them, which is kind of why,
Mm-hmm.
kind of why behind the scenes they decided to remove Ben and Polly, is because like
Mm-hmm.
they thought three companions was too many. I think had they had thought about maybe keeping Polly around and just getting rid of Ben, but then I think Anique Wills was just like, no, if you're getting rid of Ben, you should get rid of Polly as well.
I think that makes sense too, because I feel like Ben and Polly were together the whole time. I think it would be weird for them to separate. I
Yeah,
think
they had a good dynamic with each other as well, so it makes
they
sense that
did. They
they would
did.
want to leave at the same time.
But I think the behind the scenes decision also makes sense too, right? Of three companions and the doctor, it's a bit much to juggle, especially if you ever want to introduce like other companion, any other characters or temporary companions and things like that. Because we even see that with Modern Who. Like, there's a lot of moments where having too many major characters makes it difficult to balance them all.
Yeah,
Like, even though the 13th Doctor is very, very divisive for a lot of people, and she has a lot of good highlights. There's definitely a lot of scenes where it feels like they're ticking boxes of making sure each companion said something,
yeah,
so they're
definitely.
not forgotten. And that's unfortunate because that's a disservice to characters. The for, like, and you can kind of tell they were hitting moments like that here as well with Ben and Polly and Jamie, where we even mentioned Jamie was getting some of the things originally intended for Ben, and it was getting to the point where to give these characters something to do, they're practically writing out the other characters for like almost entire episodes.
Yeah, especially since like at this point in time, like there isn't like a central writer on the show like there is in Modern Who,
Right.
so you don't have like someone that can make sure every episode all the characters have stuff to do. So it's like
Mm-hmm.
it's just a bit too many characters for you to hand off to random writers and say you need to have all four of these characters having equal parts in the story.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it definitely makes sense to
It's
cut it down to three people instead of four.
yeah, I do think that's like the golden number right there, like three of two companions and the doctor.
Yeah,
And I think it is typically run best at that amount. It is definitely tons of fantastic dynamics throughout the series history with one doctor and one companion. But I really do love when we have like two companions and one doctor because I think the companion dynamics with each other are just as important as each companion with the doctor.
yeah. I wish we got a bit more of that in Modern Who. Apparently, we might get it next season, but I guess we have to see how much everyone is there.
I hope we do. It's why I loved Series 10, where we had a lot of moments with Bill and Nardole together. Because I
Yeah,
liked their dynamic together as well, even though we didn't get a ton of it. It's why, like, Christopher Eccleston, the Ninth Doctor, I love the later half of the series where it's Nine and Rose and Jack. Because I think that they have a great dynamic together as well. Like,
yeah,
I definitely think the TARDIS works well that way because companions getting to react to each other, coming from similar places, or even not coming from similar places, but being different from the Doctor specifically, lends a lot to the story. And some of like Jamie's best moments so far in this season have been with Ben or Polly, and like they're helping him like understand because he's not from modern day,
yeah,
and they from a modern day perspective try to explain things to him because the doctor from God knows where in the future trying to explain it doesn't make it any easier
yeah.
either.
Speaking of that, there was a
But that
fun
being
moment
said,
in this one where they go into the photo booth and then
oh god, that
Jamie
was so
asks about
funny.
what photographs are, and Ben starts to explain, and then the doctor's like, "No, Ben, not right now. We're not doing
Yeah,
this now."
there's no time to explain this right now. But then I loved how they paused what they were doing to pretend to be taking a photo when someone looked in.
Yeah, that was great.
It was pretty great.
I also like,
Also, Jamie holding his newspaper upside down
yeah,
at one point because he's definitely never held one before. Come on.
I also like the flying beasties. That's what he calls the
Yeah,
airplanes.
yeah. No, I love the idea of a companion that's not from present day because I think it just makes for such interesting dynamics. It makes for really interesting interactions, and Jamie had a lot of really great ones.
Yeah.
And I wish Modern Who I want a companion from not modern day. And we've gotten a few in Modern Who that's like from the future, and I love their dynamic with the Doctor, but I want a companion from the past. It's why I really hope in the new season Farada Sethi is playing a character from the past, because the first filming we've seen from her, they're in like the 1960s or 50s or something like that.
Yeah.
And I really hope she comes from that era.
Yeah, would be interesting. Especially because like that's like when Doctor Who started basically. It would be a bit
Yeah,
funny to see
exactly.
how much stuff has changed.
Exactly. Like I just think it makes for something really interesting, and it helps create interesting character dynamics.
Yeah. I will say our next companion is also from the past. I think it's like in Evil of Us, there's a bit of time travel, and I think the companion that they get from that is in like the 1850s or something.
Hmm.
So we're gonna have two people from the past for a season.
That's interesting. I'm really curious how that one's gonna play out, because having no companions in the modern day, I wonder if that I wonder how viewers felt about that,
Yeah,
because that means there's not quite a character for them to project onto, a character to relate to as much.
yeah. I mean, we kind of already had that
We'll have to see.
with Stephen and Vicky were from the future, so
That's
for a
true.
while.
Although Steven was far closer to modern day though, in terms of like who he was and how he handled himself.
Yeah,
That's fair though. I have one last little note from the Faceless ones. That's something really funny, and it's the little things they put on their wrists. I had no. It looks like a. It kind of looks like a legally distinct Wii remote.
yeah, it kind of does. I did have
But
a few more notes here that I
yeah,
found it so weird how the commandant was like so hesitant to listen to the doctor at all when it's like he's basically saying there's a human trafficking ring running out of his airport, and he's like, no, it's not a thing.
yeah.
Where would they take the people if they just left on a plane and went somewhere that no one can find them? I've never heard of anything like that. That never happens.
Yeah, his how adamant he was on not trusting the doctor was a little silly at times, because even when the doctor was speaking of things that are more reasonable, he was still dismissing it.
Yeah.
Like the fact that there was a murdered man, and the doctor and Jamie were like, "We saw a body. Someone was murdered," and people were just like, "All right, sir. Yes, yes. All right." Like they're just like, "All right, we'll humor this." Like, don't you think that's something a bit serious that you want to make sure didn't actually happen?
Yeah. And then, like, even if you don't believe the idea that there's aliens, there is still the issue of people going disappearing after they leave your airport. You,
And even if you don't believe the aliens, the doctor just showed you this little pen as a freeze gun. That's also something to be concerned about.
yeah. And then I did like how, like, the doctor's plan here is just help them settle better instead of
I
killing them
really
and
liked
stuff.
that.
It's a very,
I
very
really
good
liked that in
ending.
the end. Yes.
I mean,
It felt very doctor.
yeah, they do send them back to their home planet at the end, which is I feel like more in Modern Who they try to like help find them a way to settle in on Earth and stuff.
Hmm.
But yeah, and like I liked it that it wasn't defeating them; it was reasoning with them.
Yes. Despite all that they had done.
Yeah, because they were just trying to find a new home, so he's much more sympathetic to their cause. And then
Yeah,
he said
they were just trying to find a way to survive.
he would help their scientists find a way to just like be able to settle somewhere else better.
Yep, exactly.
And then
Which, I mean, great. Honestly, like that's really good to see. Like I love when we see the doctor do things like that.
yeah, and then I also liked Jamie's little line at the end of saying that like can't we land somewhere civilized like 1750 and not 1966 next time? And then Ben and Polly are very upset by that.
Like, what do you mean somewhere similar? What's so wrong about 1960? Like,
It was very good.
oh man,
And then
it was good. It was a good little bit of banter right before they left.
yeah, and then the Doctor was happy they could find their home, but he can't go back to
Yeah.
his home.
Yep. Maybe one day.
Yep. And then just
So,
since
okay.
Ben and Polly have left, I have behind the scenes notes about them that
Oh,
Anique Wells
yes.
does eventually come back for Big Finish. Unfortunately, Michael Craze passed away in 1998 after he had a heart attack, so
Nah.
in Big Finish, Ben is played by a new actor. But yes, there are Ben and Polly Big Finish stories with Anique Wells there. And
Okay.
Michael Craze has a funny story about Doctor Who because when they were filming The 10th Planet, I think he had an operation done on his nose recently, so his nose was very upset by the snow that they were blowing around with the wind machines. Funnily enough, though, the person that was operating those wind machines, he didn't get angry at her. In fact, they got married.
Oh.
They got married like a year after or something. So, yeah, he met his wife on the set of Doctor Who.
Wow. All right. Fair enough.
But yeah, he unfortunately passed away in 1998.
He would have been young then too, because Ben was pretty young.
Yeah, I think he had like a bad fall at home, and then
Aw.
like apparently like they couldn't operate on him because he had a heart condition, and then the day after he had a heart attack and didn't make it.
Oh, jeez. That's unfortunate.
Yeah.
Any other behind the scene details about the two of them?
Nope, that's all I got here.
Okay.
Other than saying
Well,
that like they were supposed to be in the next story, but then they changed their plans last minute.
yeah, that's fair. Well, out of all of the stories we had with Ben and Polly, which would you say you liked them best in, or which story of theirs did you say was the best for them specifically, not the best story in general?
I'd probably say 10th
Because we
Planet.
talked.
Like I
Yeah,
think
I
they
was
did
gonna
very well in
say-
10th Planet.
I was thinking that one as well. Either 10th Planet or their original story of the War Machines. I
Yeah.
think both of those were actually very good for them.
Yeah, they were definitely better early on than
Mm-hmm.
later.
Yeah, which is unfortunate, but I did enjoy their time in the TARDIS, and I don't dislike them. So,
Yeah.
all right. Well, I think that brings us to a bit of news, since I think that's everything on the Macra Terror and the Faceless ones. Because we clearly we enjoyed both of these stories; they were actually very good.
Yeah.
But we got quite a bit of modern Who news, including the fact that today, as of recording, not when you guys listen,
Yeah.
this is Doctor Who Day. So we have the 61st anniversary of Doctor Who today. We have the scripts released for season 1 of the 15th Doctor. So Ncuti Gatwa's Doctor, those scripts from that season have been released. And we also have a bunch of new deleted scenes from the 60th anniversaries and the all of season 1. I don't think we need to get like fully into those. I actually didn't even get a chance to watch the deleted scenes
Yeah,
yet.
I
But
hadn't
the
heard
fact
about
that they released them, the fact that they released them today for this and they weren't on like, the DVD release of any of these is a little strange.
Yeah, it's a bit odd. I'll have to look them up later to see them.
Yeah, they're mostly neat. The only thing that caught my eye with them is one of them actually adds context, and it explains how the Doctor gets his whistle in the finale,
Oh, it's interesting.
which is very silly. And RTD's comments on it was, it felt like it complicated things, but looking back at it again now, I think we should have kept this in.
Yeah,
And I find that really funny.
and it is nice that they release all their scripts for. Well, most of the scripts have been released at this point. It's nice that they keep
Yeah.
updating that.
Yeah, it is nice to see.
It's also so funny because like in the Halloween Apocalypse episode, which was the first episode of Doctor Who Flux, they use the F, or they say fuck in the script there. I think it's
Who was supposed to say it? Who
well,
was supposed to say it?
it was like when Claire's running away from the Weeping Angel. She doesn't
From the
say
Weeping
it, but
Angel?
it's like in her internal monologue. She's like, "Fuck you" to the Weeping Angel.
Oh, okay. It's meant to convey like it's in there as to convey like her energy towards it, her feelings towards it. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay,
So it's not that anybody would have said
that's
it. It's in
fair.
like the not the dialogue, but just like the script narration.
Okay. I was really hoping it was gonna be like something funny that was like commented out of like I don't know, of like Jericho's line or something, just
Yeah.
mutters it under his breath or something. Would have been really funny, but no, that's totally fair.
They do fun things in the script sometimes because they know it's not
Yeah,
like that part's not going to be in the episode, so they can just use swear words that they're not allowed to use.
right.
But yeah.
But more news has happened, which I'll hand over to you for these. Not tied to Doctor Who Day, although maybe for one of them, but
Yeah. So
I'll let you take it on these.
the 15th Doctor is officially going to meet Daleks, but in an escape room that you have to be in Great Britain to be part of. But yeah.
All right, when are we flying out?
Because there's like actually a Dalek prop in the room, and then I guess Shruti Gatwa recorded lines and stuff to have the Doctor talking to the people in the escape room.
Mm-hmm.
Technically, this is the first time the 15th Doctor or the 15th Doctor has met the Daleks. Hopefully, he gets to meet them on the show.
Yeah, that would be nice. It would be really weird if he doesn't, to be honest.
Yeah,
Like, even the 14th Doctor got to meet the Daleks, even though it was just for a Children in Need special.
yeah. And then this year, instead of doing a special for Children in Need, they just gave us the trailer.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And then there has been some more Big Finish news. I wrote down here that Once and Future Coda released. It released yesterday as of recording this, and I have already listened to it, and it's very good. Fugitive Doctor
nice.
is very good in it, and so is the War Doctor. The guy that the guy that got for the War Doctor does a very good John Hurt impression. It's like it just sounds like him.
That's good to hear.
It's very good. But yeah, it's a fun story
Is
where like basically things are there are people that are making the two doctors fight each other, and then they have to slowly figure out why that's happening.
Since it's part of Once in Future, does it need the context of the other stories before it, or
Not really.
is it fine to listen to on its own?
There's a couple lines that like are about the other episodes, but it's mostly a standalone thing. So
Okay,
it kind of works
that's
if
good to know.
that's all people want to listen to.
Hmm.
I did also I forgot to write this down here, but they released some information about the upcoming Sacha Dhawan Master Big Finish stuff. So it's,
Ooh.
the first episode is there's like 3 stories in it, and the first one is they were inspired by the fact that we don't really know where he fits in the timeline. So he has basically like he has a crisis where he doesn't know like who he is as a person, and
Ooh.
so he's trying to figure out who he is as a person in the first story. They don't really say like what the plot is other than that, just like he needs to figure out like who he is and stuff. And then the second one is there's a murder mystery, and the master appears to solve it, and pretending to be Sherlock Holmes.
Oh my god.
I'm sure that'll be fun for him.
Oh, that sounds like a really fun one.
And then the third one is like he goes to like an island, and he's like one of the first people to visit that island in a long time, and they kind of imply that like he's going to be a good person there. So it's going to be interesting to see how that works out. And I think this releases in February, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay. I love his master, so I'm most likely going to pick that up and give that a listen, because that should be fun.
Yeah. I think that's really all the news that has been showing up recently.
Yeah, sounds like it. Well, at this point would be if you guys support us on a Patreon, we do have a little side chat here for those at the companion tier that can watch us live as we record. So if you want to tell us that you think the Macra Terror was terrible and the Macra should never ever return, you could tell us that on the side and we'll talk about it.
Yeah.
But otherwise, you could also support us on Patreon at a lower tier for $1 a month to get into get into the Discord, and we'll be encouraging discussion between the episodes. But either one will get you early access to these episodes as soon as they're done. And with that, let's get into prep for next episode. So, Joy, I'll toss it over to you for that one.
So for our next episode, we're just going to watch one story, which is The Evil of Daleks. It is 7 episodes long, though, so like it's basically as long as 2 stories put together.
Yeah, it's a long one.
It is fully animated, and that fully animated version is on Tubi TV and BBC iPlayer and other places, although episode 2 of the story also survives. And I will say that at the end of the Faceless ones, obviously they didn't find the TARDIS, so they're still in modern day for at least a little bit. And if you remember back to the War Machines, the Doctor said, like, he sensed something like Daleks nearby. Turns out, there actually were Daleks nearby.
Oh boy.
There were Daleks around at that time. He
The Daleks must have been offended by the War Machines.
Yep. But yeah, and that will have us being introduced to, I think Victoria Waterfield is her name. And she is our next companion for the next season.
All right. That should be exciting.
Yep. And then that will be the end of the season as well. Just to make a note there.
So, yeah. So then next time we watch The Evil of Daleks and we go over our thoughts.
I should also note that this was originally planned to be the finale of the Daleks. Because after this, we don't see them again until season 9. And they weren't intended to ever be brought back after this.
Ooh, that should be pretty interesting, actually. So we got quite the Dalek story coming up next, it sounds like.
Yep.
And also the end of season 4. So we'll have quite a lot to talk about next time, I think. So as a reminder, make sure to watch The Evil of the Daleks before our next episode. You can find that on BBC iPlayer or Tubi TV. And if you support us on Patreon for just $1 a month, you'll gain access to our Discord and early access to these episodes. I've been Tris. You can find me on social media at ToonTris.
And I've been Joy. You can find me on social media at JoyContent.
And we will see you all next time. Bye.